And we're back. I'm your host, BKP. Good morning from beautiful downtown Blue Ridge, Georgia. Now, we might have, how you doing, Dr. Whaley?
Good.
But we might have a concrete truck in the background, which is okay. We got construction.
A Budweiser truck.
Well, that's soon. We already had the train go through, so we're good on that.
All right.
But you know what? To me, those are sounds that I enjoy. It's called America Starting Up in the Morning. Do you like that too?
Well, it's people working for a living.
Oh, that's what
I mean, basically, that's what
if
makes
it's
America
unrecognizable
work.
out there to you.
That's right. Well, basically, it is unrecognizable to a lot of millennials and a lot of young people that are still living in their parents' basement because they studied communications in college, and somebody wants somebody with computer skills. So I'm happy to see those. Those are rock masons over there, and
yeah, we have several guys over there pouring concrete, and it's just a refreshing thing. We're in beautiful downtown Blue Ridge. Now, we turned the set around this morning so we can get Tupelo tea, and also on the 9 o'clock hour, the All-Star political panel. That gets a little hot back there and the sun gets up. So we thought we'd change this around. You like this?
I love it, yeah. I recognize the furniture too.
Oh, I love these chairs. Dr. Whaley, good morning. Let's start right out. We're talking about working and energy drinks, and it's a billion dollar operation. Taurine is listed as an ingredient in many energy drinks. What is it? What is taurine? Is it safe?
Well, first of all, the energy drink business I've beat to death here week after week after week. So the energy drink itself is not harmful, one of them. The overuse of energy drinks in this country and particularly around the world and in El Salvador is a tragedy, and taurine is a minor ingredient in there. It is an amino acid, and it is safe in the amounts that appear in energy drinks. Which brings me to El Salvador and the gangs, which you were talking about before. I said I had to find a way to work.
Yeah, you got to find a way to get.
If I ask Sam, I'm going to ask you. I'm going to ask you to guess what percentage of the population of El Salvador lives in the United States? Don't look it up on Google.
Okay, how can I do that?
What? No, don't look it up. Just tell me. Guess, I said.
15%.
It's 25% of the population of El Salvador lives in the United States, and they are not here legally. There are a few here legally, but they're not here legally. And my memory at the end,
you have jumped clear over the energy drink, my friend, but you keep going.
I'm going to come in.
Keep going.
I'm going to come in the rest of it in a minute. But anyway, the reason, I mean, I'm older than everybody else that sits at this chair. See, I remember the Vietnamese and the Chinese gangs after the end of the Vietnam War.
Okay.
And that was a huge, huge thing in this country. But they happened to be in pockets where the Vietnamese had settled, and so that was some West Coast towns, Chinese, mostly West Coast towns. The Salvadoran gangs are everywhere, and I wouldn't be a bit surprised to think the couple of the guys that are laying that concrete over there are from El Salvador. They're scared to death of their own countrymen in this country, and if the lady that's selling those tacos over there across from the food line or across from the village, if she's from El Salvador, she might be paying protection of one of these guys up here. So I mean, it's a huge thing, and we can talk about aromatherapy next, but I didn't want that to slip by, that there really are on a mission.
Energy drinks, taurine, El Salvador gangs, and aromatherapy. And you missed this show? How do you
could possibly do it?
Can you put that together? Because we may need to.
Well, my wife says, ask me what time and I'll build you a watch.
All right, so let me just back up just long enough. What we see is the taurine in energy drinks, what they're using, that amount is safe.
Yes,
it's safe.
Right.
Okay.
It's actually a stabilizer in an energy drink.
This one's much more interesting to me. I want to go with this one next. When we go out or at our home or the grocery store, we are offered all kinds of artificial sweeteners. All right, I'd like to know what is the best artificial sweetener myself personally, and B, the question is, can I use an artificial sweeteners if I have diabetes?
All right, let's stick with that one first, because there's there's some. I'm a Ford truck man, and some of your people on the panel next are Chevy truck men, and they're all great trucks. So we could argue all day about which truck's the best, and you're stuck with that with artificial sweeteners. Let's call them all equal.
Okay.
Yes, they're safe for diabetics, but interestingly enough, and this I think is really important to think about, the American Diabetes Association and the official words on artificial sweeteners for women with gestational diabetes. There are women who are diabetic only when they're pregnant. So they're talking about a woman and a fetus. Well, everybody tells you don't do this, don't do that, don't do the other thing when you're pregnant. And the official medical word is that the artificial sweetener is very good for diminishing the amount of carbohydrate in the diet of the pregnant woman with gestational diabetes. So if they actually recommend it in a diabetic woman with a baby in there, how much more safe could it possibly be for regular diabetics? So yes, they are safe to be used in diabetes, and people who want to be sociable while everybody else has got a regular Coke. The Diet Coke is totally and permanently safe. It has no adverse effects on diabetes, and it does lower your overall caloric intake for the day, and that's one of the important things in diabetes.
Okay, all right.
And this is artificially straight. But
Yeah,
I'm not diabetic.
Huh?
But I'm not diabetic yet.
I was going to say, the Tab is that's an approved drink for Ask the Doc, our segment. And by the way, we want to thank the Georgia Cancer Specialist for this segment every week. What is the benefits of aromatherapy?
Well,
I'm interested.
You know,
aromatherapy. What's the
last
benefits?
week we had that question about inversion therapy for your back, and I let it go into a long discussion about the back. And I think when you ask this question about aromatherapy, you're asking a question about herbal therapy in general that is important to put into a perspective. Aromatherapy is an herb that is placed in some fashion where you either inhale it or it's rubbed on your body in a massage or something of that sort. So I actually brought all the official stuff on aromatherapy today. And generally it's a volatile oil. And what does that mean? It's got an oil, it's got something in it that you can smell, and it'll stay there a lot longer than if it was in water. It's generally used by inhalation, meaning you drop the stuff on your pillow. Massage therapy, it's the oil they rub on you. Or actually, you can take some aromatherapies, you take them by mouth. So it's all herbal therapy. All of the studies that have been done on aromatherapy, and that is by inhalation or by massage, have failed to show any harm from them. One more time. Have failed to show any harm from them, but have not clearly shown any significant benefit from them in the things they're used most often for, and that's anxiety, with one exception. And I'm going to read it. A systematic review concluded that aromatherapy with lavender oil, just that one, is safe and somewhat effective in reducing anxiety symptoms in cancer patients and dementia patients undergoing hospice care. So that's a real minor, small group of people, but in the hospice palliative care environment, aromatherapy with lavender oil alone did seem to have a beneficial effect in reducing anxiety in those two groups of people. So now, what I started out by saying was that the larger studies have never shown any significant amount of harm, but no significant amount of benefit either. Still, we're talking about aromatherapy. That means I'm inhaling it or I'm rubbing it on your shoulder when I do a massage. When you take that bit of information and you extrapolate over to herbal therapy where you're taking it by mouth, it's crystal clear no herbal therapy ever tested for anxiety works. But more importantly, patients wrongly estimate or think that herbal is equivalent to good or weak or healthy. Is not. That's not a link you can make. Herbal does not mean healthy, weak versus prescription, or good. And many of them are potentially addictive or poisonous. And we've been through this before. That when you get some of these health product, herbal remedies and whatever from a website or from a health food store, 99% of them are made in China. But even the ones that are made in the United States have no supervision. The FDA, the Agriculture Department, nobody supervises them. So when I say that aromatherapy may be safe and effective for dementia patients and cancer patients undergoing hospice care, but clearly they're not harmful, maybe not be beneficial, but they're not harmful. But if you like the smell of lavender when you go to sleep, use it. If you like a massage where they're using aromatic oils instead of plain old oils, let them do it. But don't take that permission for that around to the fact that I can take a bunch of herbal stuff by mouth. There.
So I mean, we don't have studies showing an enormous benefit, but we have studies actually showing no harm
for aromatherapy. In the forms of place it on your pillow and inhale it, or at the massage therapist getting it rubbed on you. Once it enters your mouth or your body in any other way, don't do it.
And I don't know how else to put this, but if it makes you feel better, then you can be your own study sometimes. I mean, if you get up and you feel better, or you go to massage, you say, hey, I feel better. Sometimes you can be your own study. I mean, you know what I'm saying?
You can be married to one. You can be married to one that regularly uses massage. Occasionally will buy one of these cachet things that smells like lavender, or in Croatia will go to the lavender field where all the lavender comes from and bring home 10 pounds of it and stick it in drawers and put it next to the pillow. And yeah, that makes you feel good, do it. I got no quarrel with that.
I have to be careful with that. If it makes you feel good, do it.
Yeah, I can't. I don't agree to that. That's not my philosophy.
I didn't say that. I didn't say that.
Okay, good. All right.
Because I just, I don't want to. Maybe aromatherapy could be good.
All right. Well, I've got a couple of things that bothered me this week that I want to.
A couple things.
Yeah.
Okay.
I want to hit two things. One of them got thrown in my face yesterday by one of my colleagues, and that was that I've been talking here in the last 3 or 4 months about our parents of high school kids thinking about, is it safe or not safe to allow them to play soccer, football, or one of these sports?
Yes, we've talked about that several times.
And I have pointed out that some very good studies have come out that show that playing sports as a high school athletics does not lead to any significant reduction in intellectual capacity or any long-term brain injury. But when you get to the high-end college or the NFL, you do. Well, there was a study that came out 2 days ago, and I'm surprised that Sam hadn't mentioned it to me today, because it got huge publicity in the scientific community. And I know that what Sam does in the morning is she goes on the science websites while she's drinking that coffee at home. All right, this study was published in the Journal of the American Medical Association this week, so it gets that big, maybe in fact you might see it on the news today. There were 111 NFL players so far who have donated their brains to that brain study.
Right.
All right. 111 NFL players. 110 of those 111 brains, now that's about as close to 100% as you can get, had chronic traumatic encephalopathy. 110 out of 111 brains. So that would say to you, everybody who's played football in the NFL has got demonstrable, under the microscope, brain injury. They have a variety of college brains that have been donated to them, and they all were high-end players, and 91% of the college players' brains had the chronic traumatic encephalopathy. They have a variety of Canadian Football League brains that have been much smaller numbers than 111. But 88% of the Canadian Football League brains had the same thing. So there you go. That's 99%, 91%, and 88%. Well, what about high school? Well, they've got brains of that still a small number of people who only played high school sports, high school football at a pretty good level, and 21% of them had evidence for traumatic brain injury. Chronic traumatic encephalopathy is the word, CTE. Now that's going to scare you to death. But the point I want to make is that the people who donated their brains or had their families donate their brains did so because the patient had a mood disturbance, a behavioral disturbance, committed suicide, or did some violent crime. And the statistics are that 95% of the patients that donated those brains had thought or reasoning abnormalities. 89% had behavior or mood disorders, which mean either they were arrested or they were wife beaters or they were chronically depressed. And 85% of them had signs of dementia. So what really happened was it would be like an autopsy of people who had car wrecks that were due to drunk driving, and you would say their livers had evidence for alcohol damage. Therefore, people who have car wrecks have liver damage. Well, that's not the issue. People who have car wrecks due to alcohol may have liver damage. So the real important thing here is this chronic traumatic encephalopathy in people who play really high-end football, whether it's college, Canadian, or the NFL, do have an increased incidence of traumatic brain injury. Now you've got, I think it's somewhere like 800,000 NFL graduates that have played since the league began. But that little tiny bit that end up with beating their wife or killing themselves, or a lot of these were people who had criminal records or real bad behavior, and there have been specials written about them. So I don't want those people, when they see that in the National Enquirer this week, to say, oh my goodness, Dr. Whaley's been telling us crap all this last month or two about my kid playing high school football. So anyway, that was thrown in my face yesterday by one of my colleagues who goes on the science websites every morning when he drinks his coffee, just like Sam.
Okay. You said a couple things. Was there anything else?
Yeah, how do you like this one?
I don't know yet.
All right.
I'll get ready.
All right, and we're
Here.
talking about conspiracy theories, right?
All right, let's go.
All right. Have you ever heard of the anti-statin internet cult? What's a statin?
I'm not for sure.
What's a statin, Sam? That's Lipitor. It's a cholesterol drug.
Okay.
All right.
Well, no, I hear that in the commercial, so I didn't want to. Okay,
statins.
All right. I hear that in the commercial. Lipitor, Crestor, right? Exactly.
You got them. That's the brands. Okay.
All right. I hear. That's when I heard the name or the word statin. I said, wait a minute. Okay.
All right.
All right. So Crestor, Lipitor,
anti-statin.
I understand where you're going now. Okay.
Internet cult.
Okay.
Okay. Now, I hate to say it, but this is a lot like the people who don't get their kids vaccinated because they think it's going to cause autism, for which there has been absolutely no proof, as I've said before. So
you have to excuse me. This is new this week. Over there, I can see everybody pulling up. Over here, I can't. So, every once in a while, I'm going like this.
Here comes the panel.
All right, I didn't mean to interrupt you, but because I want to get in on this.
Okay, here comes the panel. First of all, all of these, the conspiracy about immunizations, I told you a week or two ago, there's a huge measles epidemic in the Somali population in Minneapolis. There was a big measles epidemic last year in nursing homes in Washington State and Oregon because their immunity had fallen. Well, that's so what? They're in a nursing home, but they were catching it from their grandkids who came to visit who didn't get immunized against measles. Okay, so we call this anti-science skepticism. And the three conditions that they tell you don't take statins because it'll increase your chances of getting dementia. It can increase your chances of having a fatal muscle disorder called rhabdomyolysis. It can increase.
Is that why when you take it, if they ask you if your muscles ache?
Yeah, but that's not. Okay, rhabdomyolysis is the one where your urine goes dark, your muscles go rotten, and you can die of kidney failure. The muscle aching part I'll come back to in a minute, or it can cause stroke. Well, first of all, there are mounds of clinical evidence about statins, and there's just about zero evidence that they're harmful in any of these ways. And when I say mounds, I mean that there have been tens of millions of people around the world who have been studied. So here we go. We're going to give you a real short mathematical model of how you take risk and benefit and what the anti-science skeptics do. These guidelines are worldwide adhered to by all of the medical and the epidemiologic community. There's a recent report, took 10,000 patients, followed them for 5 years, and there were two groups, those at high risk, we mean high cholesterol, and those that had already had a stroke or a vascular event. So now you got 10,000 patients, followed for 5 years. There was one case of rhabdomyolysis. There were 5 cases of myopathy, and there were 7 strokes. So 12 people out of 10,000 had an adverse event. There was a 1,000 patient reduction in the high-risk group in strokes and heart attacks. There was a 500 person reduction in the people who had already had vascular disease in heart attack and stroke. So 10,000 people took the drug, 1,500 people's lives were saved, and 12 had a bad reaction. Now, if I could do the lottery and have a 12 to 10,000 chance of a bad outcome and a 1,500 chance of a good outcome, I'd follow that kind of thing anytime. If that was betting, you'd want to bet on the 1,500, not the 12. So that anti-science internet conspiracy business is not, and the only reason I brought that up for the cholesterol was that this study was published yesterday, is that is exactly the same websites. You get on one of those about the cholesterol, you're going to pop up there with the vaccination and the autism.
Right.
You're going to pop up there with herbal remedies are better than the blood pressure pills and stuff. And so all of that is anti-science, and once they get you hooked on the internet, you're stuck.
I know you have to go, but since you brought that up, I want to ask you something. A doctor told me that Crestor, we're going to use Crestor, that not only lowering the cholesterol, I hate to use the word proven, but I'm pretty sure that's what he said in the study, that it created somewhat of a coat over the plaque that helped prevent it from letting loose. It
stabilizes the plaque, not because.
It is shown that the plaque on the walls it helps it not to, and that's what we get.
All right, this is really important.
All right, I'm
Okay,
really interested.
Sam, you
in
got to listen to this. Okay, the original studies were done with people who had an arteriogram. Let's just use the carotid because
Right.
that's an easy one. And that's a big wide pipe. And you could have up to 50 or greater percent plaque on that thing and still not have a stroke, who were given the statin drugs. They were studied again with an arteriogram of the exact same artery 2 years and 5 years later. And in that group where you dropped the LDL below 70, you were dissolving out some of the plaque. That's what you heard about the stabilization.
Right,
okay. So you could actually reverse the process, and over time it would dissolve, like dissolving the rust out of your pipes in your house. I mean, you don't think there's anything you could do that's going to do anything to make that rust you already got there get out of there. Well, this rust got out. That was the stimulus to say that everybody in the world, regardless of how high their cholesterol is, ought to start taking a cholesterol-lowering drug in their 30s or 40s, because you can't have too low an LDL. So if you have a normal LDL and you take a statin and drop it down below 70, the number of people with normal cholesterol who are going to have heart disease is pretty big. You're going to lower that as well. So the way they put it to you about stabilizing it with a membrane or something is a great way to explain it. But what it actually did was dissolved out some of the plaque.
Okay.
Great,
all right.
huh?
No, I like that because I do, I mean, a little personal, but I do my blood work once a year with my doctor, once a year. And we do the, you know, sugar, and we do the cholesterol, and we do everything. And, you know, I can't just do anything I want, but I take no medication because because my blood work comes back. And
blood work comes back. You can always exercise, run, and you could take a statin and make your blood work. Remember what I said a long time ago, this is a Whaley truism, nobody else ever says it. Average is not ideal.
Okay.
You don't want an average love life, an average income, an average anything else. And when somebody says my blood work's okay, they're saying it's average. They're not saying it's ideal. So that concept, now you go to a guy like Ray Tidman, I mean, I hate to call him Ray all the time. I mean, Ray's a smart man. He's a rocket scientist.
No, you know how I feel about Ray.
He's an aeronautical engineer and a rocket scientist. So you'll get the idea that average can be improved upon.
Okay.
So I'll let it go.
Average can be improved upon. We'll leave it at there.
Write that down, guys. Average
we'll leave
can
it
be
at
improved
there.
upon.
And I'm your host, BKP. Thank you, Georgia Cancer Specialist. And this segment of Ask the Doc with Dr. Whaley. When we get back, it's going to be time for the All-Star panel. Take a break, Sam.